Don't let Ty West hear you say that.
He's not a fan of that word at all, is he?
This film, Wayne, in
Yes.
Ty West's eyes, is definitely not a homage to 80s and 70s horror cinema. It is specifically, in his words, a period piece. Well, if you think, what is a homage? A homage is, you're paying tribute to something.
Yes.
A period piece just happens to take place in a specific time and place. And to me, this is, and I'm actually going to, Wayne, fuck you. I'm actually going to agree with Ty West here. This is specifically a period piece. It is not overtly 80s. It is not the huge feathered hair and the neon colors. And you know how we mentioned in the Manhunter episode, the Miami Vice-ness of the 80s? This is very much not that.
Yes.
This is very contained. It is very different. This is... Ty West said, here's an anecdote from Ty West. He said, when you watch David Fincher's film Zodiac, now, that is not a homage to the 70s and 60s, is it?
No.
It's simply taken place in the 60s and 70s. Thereby, it's a period piece. You wouldn't call Zodiac a homage. And I think this film is rooted in that same space. This is not a homage, it is a period piece.
So it's taking place in kind of 70s, 80s kind of time is where it's based, and it just happens to share some of, we'll say, the kind of stylistic choices of the day. But it's not homage, not tribute, period piece.
They are words you used. I'm going to put you on the spot. In your words, why did you think this was a homage or a tribute?
Well, it's
Defend
because,
yourself, Wayne.
Well, we're talking Ty West here.
Yes.
Now, we've seen a few of Ty West's films, one of which specifically was the movie X.
Oh, we recently seen that.
Which is a film we both really liked.
And we watched it together.
Yes, we watched it together. I loved that film. I thought that was fantastic.
Twinning.
Yes, twinning, yes. That was, would you say that was more a homage because it had things like, it looked like 70s horror film, it had almost exact camera shots from, for example, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'm glad you mentioned that film. We're toying around with this word homage, right?
Yeah.
But there is a definite period in my eyes from what I've seen of Ty West where specifically horror cinema ceases to be. His influences are definitely from the 80s and 70s.
That's clear.
X, as we mentioned, loved that film.
Yes.
Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing to divert. Do you think it's the modern classic some say it is? I think it's a really, really solid horror film. Is it a modern classic then?
I'm not sure I'd call it modern classic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd go that way. I enjoyed it very much, but I can't see it being any kind of like new yardstick or new benchmark. But it was an excellent film.
But it definitely does take the aesthetics of, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper's film. But it's its own thing. It's not simply there to satisfy the fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's a very different film. It's using the aesthetics, it's using the, that graininess of 70s cinema, and it's transcending that to become something completely modern and different.
Yeah, you think for a lot of people, the boundary between homage and just kind of outright rip-off can blend. And do you think there's people who can use that as an excuse? They make a movie that's just a rip-off of something else. No, it's a homage, it's not a rip-off.
Well, somebody who is more guilty, in my eyes, of paying homage to past generations is a Tarantino.
Yeah.
Whether it's lifted lines, lifted piece of soundtrack or scores for his films, or
lifted shots as well.
Characters, who he brought back famously, to say John Travolta.
Yes.
He liked Pam Grier.
Yeah.
Because he's in thrall of these people. I'm not necessarily certain that Ty West is in thrall of 80s or 70s cinema. It's an aesthetic he is using to tell his own story.
Yes. Well, it's interesting you say that kind of that
Right.
growing up in this, because this idea did come from his childhood, because
Right.
Ty West grew up in American suburbs, and he remembers people saying, oh, don't go down to the park by yourself, or a van with no windows will come along and kidnap you and sacrifice you to the devil. Because in this movie, we're talking about one of the main themes, the Satanic Panic.
The Satanic Panic, which, oh my God, this was a media-driven. It was fueled by the media. Remember how many shows you had there? You had the Donahue show, the Oprah show.
Yeah.
And, people almost want to transcend Oprah to, almost sainthood now.
Yeah,
but she fueled some stupidity.
She did. She had a lot of charlatans on her.
Yes.
She had fake psychics and people peddling bullshit alternative medicines and things like that.
And I think one of the big cases, or a very notable case within this, the whole Satanic Panic era was, can you remember the McMartin preschool case?
I think so, yes.
It's essentially was this preschool where apparently all the staff, or most of the staff, were abusing the children sexually. And they had underground tunnels leading here, there, everywhere. But, when it went to trial, none of these claims were substantiated.
No.
You know, of demons and that, of people floating, of witches, etc.
You're telling me it wasn't literally Satan that made all this happen?
I'm up in the air here, Wayne. I have no idea.
I am shocked by this.
Yes,
But
well,
yeah, like you say, it's just a hysteria that comes about. A few people latch onto it. Like you say, some famous people get hold of it. It's on TV. Well, it must be true then. And like you say, it just spreads like wildfire all over the country. And he said the whole idea of this film, because again, revolves around satanic panic, paganism, cults, things like that. It just came from people's obsession with Satanists at the time. They were like the new communists. It was like the next Red Scare.
it was like McCarthy brought to the 80s.
Exactly.
But rather than communists, it was heavy metal and horror films.
It was men with leather jackets and long, dirty hair.
So essentially, Ozzy Osbourne's Vladimir Lenin.
But we're talking Ty West here, and it's a 2009 film. Again, he'd done a few other horror flicks. Horror seems to be his kind of genre of choice. How many of his have you seen? I've seen X. I really want to see Pearl, but I don't think I've seen any of his other horror films.
You enjoyed this film?
Very much, yes.
I think you'd enjoy The Innkeepers. The Innkeepers was his film, I'm pretty sure, after House of the Devil. The Innkeepers is working in a similar... You know, there's a certain pace to this film. You could say it's very slow burn.
Steady pace, you could
Steady
say.
pace.
Deliberately paced.
Deliberately paced. And The Innkeepers is working very much the same way. It's like a haunted hotel, in a sense, which ties in with this film. But, yeah, he's got his own style. He doesn't like to be called a horror director.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like to be called anything, apparently. But, you know, he thinks it's too limiting. He's somebody who makes horror films. He's not a horror director specifically. Because once you get into the genre and you can become known as a horror director, it's very easy to be stuck and pigeonholed.
Pigeonholed into a certain genre, yeah.
Especially if you start your way. Like Kubrick, people are going to say, look, well, Kubrick made The Shining, then he made Full Metal Jacket, etc. But Kubrick didn't start in horror. There's a difference there.
Yes.
Tobe Hooper suffered the same fate with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. George Romero. You know, how many fucking zombie films
movies.
can you make?
Exactly, yeah.
But for some reason, if you start your career in horror, it's a genre you get stuck in, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it's a very prolific genre,
Yeah.
isn't it? There are so many things. In fact, I read an interview with Ty West, and he was asked the question very bluntly, when did horror become so lame? Like horror films become so lame? And he said, and I agree with this, it's because horror costs pretty much bugger all to make. So it's really easy to get a horror film out. Look at Blair Witch Project. That cost very little,
Hey,
didn't
that was
it?
a great film.
Way less. I really like Blair Witch. Yeah.
Don't use that as an example.
But it was copied and imitated so much, and it's still profitable. And what he said was, if you don't want remakes, stop spending money on them. If you want original horror, support original horror, because otherwise you're not going to get any more. Because if you just go and see remakes, reboots, etc., everyone complains about them. But by seeing them and making them profit, you're not incentivizing studios to make anything different, because why would you? You want a return on your investment.
And horror's always going to be profitable. Look, horror is one of their mainstays. It's never going away. We love the genre.
It's so ingrained in our psyches. Like some of the earliest movies were horror films. In fact, in 1896, George Méliès,
Yes.
who did The Trip to the Moon, one of the early pioneers of cinema,
Exactly.
he made a horror film called The House of the Devil, which some people say is the first ever horror film.
It is. Have you seen the film?
I have, yes. It's only like 3-4 minutes long.
That's all like,
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, it's cheesy as hell, but I mean, making it back in the day, yeah, this was mind-blowing at the time.
I love that. It's like we say, look, this film was 2009, this House of the Devil.
Yes.
Ty West's House of the Devil. I'm assuming 2009, we're roughly in the era of the torture porn, aren't we? Or we're not far removed. Saw's relatively recent. Hostel's relatively recent.
Hostel only a few years old. In fact, I think Hostel 2 was around about that time.
Which I like them. I like those films as well. You don't always have to be intellectual.
No.
Horror's working on a primordial level, isn't it? It's them primal feelings, fear, all those kind of things. And you're thinking, often people want to intellectualize cinema to the point that it becomes stunted,
Yes.
in a sense. And sometimes things, you just want it to work on a basic level.
Yes, on an instinctual level. You watch somebody being chased down a corridor with a knife-wielding maniac, that triggers our fight and flight response. So, like I say, on a primordial level, that is something that we very much connect with as human beings.
Like, look, Scream is an extremely satisfying film. Agree?
Very
Disagree?
much, yes, love it.
Right, it doesn't have to be Midsummer. It doesn't have to be
No.
Hereditary.
No.
Films can't... There is a place for fun in horror.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think most people would actually, if you were to ask people what is your favourite horrors, a lot of them are ones that tend to be on the either hokey or fun side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're the fun ones, what you mean, like the Friday the 13th
Yeah,
kind of thing.
you just throw them on with friends, don't you, and enjoy them.
Yeah, you're not expecting think pieces to be made on them, but they're like, let's put this on, let's get a bunch of friends together, a few drinks, and let's just watch this. It's fun, it's satisfying to watch.
But does that tie in with this film, Wayne?
Well, sort of. Why would you say, I hate to bring this term up, elevated horror. We've talked about this term, we've disparaged this term. Do you think it has any place here with this film?
I don't know. Is this elevated horror before the term was even coined?
No, this is almost kind of simplistic, bare bones horror, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is elevated horror. It's not really a modern horror piece, is it? As we said, it's retroism in a sense.
Yeah, with elevated horror, you almost have that meta thing where people are sitting around talking about, they're discussing things like the final girl tropes, you know, the stupidity of the killer, things like that. But in this...
That sounds like Scream, Wayne.
Yeah, it does sound like that kind of
Are you sure you're on about elevated horror there?
Sort of, yeah. But when elevated horror, you're talking like your Heredities, your
Midsummer,
stuff like that.
Things you would assume that or A24 puts out. But yes, this is 2009.
Mm-hmm.
We're shot in Connecticut. 16mm film, which is purposeful. It gives it that grain. It gives it that authenticity to early 80s cinema.
Because it was a staple at the time. But not just low-budget things, because even prestigious films like Leaving Las Vegas and The Hurt Locker, both Academy Award winners, both of them were shot in 16mm
They were, yes.
as well.
Leaving Las Vegas, I love that film.
Exactly.
I prefer it to Hurt Locker.
I do. I love Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's great. Is that because
Partly
Nicolas
the
Cage is in it?
No, it's a very, very well done film. But it can save, I think with Hurt Locker, they saved something like $20 million of the budget just by shooting on 16mm
20
film.
million?
Something like that. Maybe not 20, but it was in the tens of millions how much this saved. Also, in this movie, this is something we'll talk about a lot, the stylistic choices. I think this is why people want to use the term homage, because there are so many stylistic choices which are reflective of the time period that this was set in, when people were making movies back then.
Of course, Wade. And do you know last week we discussed Manhunter?
Yes.
It's by accident. This was not planned.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
This is our second film in a row to co-star Tom Noonan.
The great Tom Noonan. And our third film overall, for first one, Anomalisa.
Anomalisa, Manhunter, and now House of the Devil.
Yes.
I never knew I liked the guy so much.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Like, he's almost our unofficial mascot now, isn't he?
What, is that going to be our logo? Just a bald-headed Tom Noonan?
I'm just going to say, Tom Noonan approved.
Oh.
So now fans of him have to listen to us.
There we go. Do you think there's many fans?
Damn right.
I think so,
There should be. Would you say he's underappreciated? I think in a sense he kind of is.
He's particular, isn't he? He's not your Tom Cruise.
No.
I don't think that needs to be said.
Almost more kind of niche in a sense, because I think he did like a lot of theatre work, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah,
I think he comes from that New York theatre background, doesn't he?
Yes, he did, yes. But with the film, you say shot in Connecticut, did you say?
Shot in Connecticut in linear structure.
Yes, or shot sequentially.
Yes.
Yeah, it was 18 days it took, a budget of $900,000. Do you want to guess how much it made back?
900,000 it was made for. I'm going to guess, I don't know the answer here, 400 grand?
If only.
How much did it make?
Just over 100,000.
Really?
You think one of the reasons is because, you know, the most theatres it was ever playing in at one time? 7. So
okay, so
didn't even get a wide release. Yes, playing in very few theaters. Not a lot of people saw it at the time. I hadn't even heard of it until I seen it a couple of years ago.
that was the first time you seen it?
Yeah.
I seen it a year or two after it came out.
How did you hear about it when it came out?
Probably the internet, Wayne.
Just reading about it online.
Our generation hears everything from the internet.
Everything is
There's
online.
nothing you can't see.
Social media, but it didn't make very much money back. But does it seem like the kind of movie that was made with the intention of making back like a big profit?
I don't know. You see, because of course, we keep going. Film culture keeps going through this renaissance with horror. Like when the 90s, Scream brought it back, or they say it brought it back. In the early 90s, you had Silence of the Lambs, what won all the Oscars pretty much.
Yes, a very prestigious, one of the most successful horror films, yeah.
I'd call that a horror film.
Yeah, it is a horror film.
So why the fuck did Scream bring it back?
I don't know.
Before Scream, Wes Craven made New Nightmare, which was riffing on ideas that Scream was doing.
Yeah, because that was like Nightmare on Elm Street come into the real world, wasn't it?
Yes. And then it's like, oh, well, Paranormal brought horror back, or Cabin Fever, or Hostel, or you name your horror movie, and it's always accounted for bringing something back.
So people are liable to say that the next big trend is like reviving horror, even though it's like you're saying you're reviving something that just never went away in the first place. It was always there.
Well, we're going through pretty much, as they would have you believe, a slasher renaissance now.
Yeah.
The return of Scream, Friday the 13th remake or sequels being greenlit. Nightmare on Elm Street's also coming back, apparently. You know, we had Fear Street on Netflix.
So it's not necessarily a renaissance, it's a revival would maybe be a more appropriate term.
Do you know how I mentioned Cabin Fever there, man?
Yes.
There you go. Well, Cabin Fever 2, Ty West.
Yeah, he
Sort of directed.
He tried to go the Alan Smithy route, as
He
far as I
did,
know.
yes.
But you know, I think that's outlawed now because too many people tried to.
Do you want to explain in case people wonder what the fuck
if you know,
you
yeah.
mean?
Alan Smithy was a pseudonym which was created in, I think it was the 80s, 90s. Basically, if you're a director, you're making a film, there's some kind of studio interference, or the film is cut without your say-so, which has happened lots of times. You can opt to have your name taken off and the name Alan Smithy placed on it instead.
And this is pertinent to this because Ty West, he wanted to put his own stamp on Cabin Fever 2, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I think the studio at some point, they were like, look, people expect a certain thing from Cabin Fever 2.
Yeah.
You're not delivering. They kind of took over. Ty West wasn't happy with that. He pulled back, removed his name, or attempted to remove his name. And, you know, the rest is history. People can look this up.